Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez, and this is episode 462. I am joined, as always, by my co-host Prez. That is @_Presidente on Twitter. Prez, how you doing?
Good morning, Kevin McCullough.
Yes, Kevin McCullough is back on the floor, and that matters to nobody other than Prez and Kevin McCullough. We're not going to talk about Kevin McCullough because I don't give a shit.
What if Kevin McCullough is a Patreon subscriber and now he's going to cancel? Did you ever think about that, Shwin?
Nope, did not think about that. Don't care about it.
SMH.
Yep, it's unfortunate. All right. But before we get started, I do have to make a few announcements. First, being that Strickland has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are, and not done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.thestrick.land. There's a link down taking to the merchandise store. And there's all kinds of cool stuff that you can find on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday. The Prez, you also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, a podcast hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, along with Zach Blatter. And you get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. They say $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rant for the next even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Marino, one of the best in the business. And you get access to Strickland NFL, which, you guessed it, is a podcast about the NFL that is hosted by Konstantin Metrikos and Desmond Novak. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. That's going with a variety of additional benefits, like listening in on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without BetOnline. The biggest betting weekend of the year is finally here, which means more updated odds and props for Super Sunday. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting. We have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, and exclusive in-game live betting. BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline offers you everything and more to enhance your game day experience. Visit the website today and make game day action count a little bit more. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right. Well, the Knicks are on a tear. They destroyed the Kings. They destroyed the Grizzlies, and then they kept the Nuggets at a full arm's length distance through most of the game. Yeah, they're playing great ball right now, and I don't really think there's too much to say about that hasn't been said, but I don't know. Is there anything that stands out to you in particular that has changed with what they're doing? I would say probably defensively, they're switching more freely, more fluidly. It seems like they're also mixing up coverages more, but I'm curious to see what you have seen, if anything in particular, that you think maybe is the reason for not just them going on a little winning streak here, but also, improved defense. And to be fair, the offensive tear they've been on lately also, getting back to some of those high volume assist games that we saw earlier in their season that they had gotten away from a little bit in recent weeks.
Yeah, a couple of things, including what you mentioned on defense. It really started in the second half of the Kings game. After in the second quarter of that game, Malik Monk and Sabonis torched them in drop. And then Tibbs finally was like, let's begin to switch it up with Cat and especially with Precious. And they just put the clamps on the Kings in that second half completely. We saw in Memphis, they began to switch. They continued switching a little bit more liberally, particularly like this isn't like any Boston shit. It's just like kind of what we expected, right? Which is like Hart and McCall and OG. Like you guys should at the minimum switch. Like occasionally Precious, sure. Occasionally Brunson or Cat. But switching a lot with the wings and then switching just more than 0 times with Cat and Brunson, basically just like not being scared to fucking death of having guys isolate on Brunson and Cat. Cat in particular has kind of been doing his thing in isolation, which he's always been like sneaky good at, I feel like. It's the defense where you got to think that he struggles when it's just like him versus his man, mano y mano. He's fine. And Memphis is also just a good matchup for us because they don't run as much pick and roll as most teams, and that's what gives us trouble a lot of the time. And then Denver, I mean, plenty of people have spoken about Cat's success defending Jokic in the playoffs last year, but I thought the switching continued quite a lot.
Yeah, he had trouble with Murray though.
Who?
Cat.
Oh yeah, Murray. That was like a throwback Murray game. It was like he just hit a bunch of fucking hard shots. It was really annoying. And the Knicks reverted a little bit in their game plan because they often, too much in my opinion, just dare opponents to beat them in the short mid-range because the idea is like, all right, if we drive them off the 3-point line and pack the rim, then all they have left is this inefficient mid-range shot. And also we're less likely to foul on those shots. So it's like, if they're going to beat us by hitting a zillion mid-range shots, then good luck. The problem is the Knicks would let teams hit a bunch of those mid-range shots and hit a bunch of threes, but versus Denver, I don't know what Denver shot versus us from three. Aside from Murray, I don't think it was that good. So
they don't shoot a lot of threes anyway. They just
So it was a good team to have that game plan against, right? Because like Murray and Jokic obviously are really great from that range, but if you can keep them off the foul line and just keep the threes down, then you can probably outshoot them if you're a team as gifted as the Knicks are on offense. So, of all the really good teams, I actually think Memphis and Denver probably match up the worst with us. So it was good to see the Knicks kind of take advantage of that on defense. On offense, there's been a couple of things that have been impressive. The first, honestly, is like at first I was dubious about this claim, but like I'm pretty sure Carl's been bothered by his thumb for shooting threes. We're on like game 4 of him just not only missing from 3, but probably not taking as many as he normally would. And he doesn't take that many to begin with. So, and he's still, obviously a big time contributor on offense, but like for them to just be killing these teams despite that, you got to look at the offense and see what else are they switching up. The first thing that jumps out is the transition stuff. They were going crazy over these last couple of games, and Denver's dog shit at transition. They're the only other good team along with us that's in like the bottom 5 in transition defense over the course of the season. And their shit is, they're just straight up like lazy and unaware. Like Gordon's really the only one who knows what the fuck is going on. If you just have enough movement on offense, and we were just picking them off like systematically. Like anytime OG was defending at the top and the shot went up, it was like, okay, everybody else hit the glass, OG run down and curtains. That was it. Then they were just playing football. Nobody, MPJ can't catch up. Jokic can't catch up. Everybody else is too small. McCall was doing it. Josh was obviously, doing his coast to coast thing. And that was for Memphis too. That was the crazy thing. Like they was, you often hear like, oh, like you want to get caught up in their play style or not. And for the Knicks, the answer is usually no. But lately, the answer, if teams run in transition, the Knicks are like, fuck you, we can do that too. Especially since now, like, I don't know if the deflections and steals have been a coincidence. I'm curious what you think, or like something a little more systematic, or more just like a happy outcome as a result of their switching and just being a little bit more locked in on defense, knowing when to switch, knowing when to zone up away from the ball. That was a big problem that I've talked about a lot in some videos and on the podcast is like you don't have to actually respect these other teams' players on defense as much as we do, right? Like unless they're like an all-star, like it's pretty common for an NBA to be like for NBA defenses to be like, all right, we're gonna, dare Jamal Murray to make a cross-court pass to Julian Strother, who's like a good shooter, but like who cares? It's not about him. It's like are you going to dare the team to make the tough passes over and over? And I think the switching and just kind of like zoning up has led to a lot of deflections, especially for Hart and the bench. Payne and Shamik, I feel like get a ton of deflections. Last I checked, per I want to say 36 minutes, Shamit actually has Payne has like a huge gap in terms of how many like he like leaves the team at like 3.7 or 3.8 or something crazy, and the next highest is like I think Deuce at like 3.1 or something. So like they're like following the principles really well in terms of like modern defense, switching a little more, zoning up a little bit more. And that contributes to the transition. But the transition stuff is also off of like makes. So you can tell they're like adjusting their transition plan game to game, which is cool. And I had one more thing. Oh yeah, Bailey made a video talking about Bailey Liao, podcast guest and video maker extraordinaire, about the Knicks getting Brunson more. They get him the ball off ball more, kind of like they did in the second half of last season when everybody was dead and we just had to like run these like Steph Curry sets for him to go off like 14 screens to get the ball. And it's been really nice to see that come back. I haven't charted it, but I would bet over the last 2 weeks his catch and shoot 3-point opportunities have like skyrocketed. Just because earlier in the season, what happened was like Hart would be the only other one initiating offense, and then Brunson for 3/4 of the game would still do the thing where he just like walks the ball up, crosses half court with 16 seconds, gets into his set with like 13 seconds from like 30 feet away. Now you're seeing Towns get him the ball, OG get him the ball, McCall get him the ball. And he's like getting these opportunities to score with somebody flying at him. And it's like, dude, like he's too gifted. Like that's like an automatic advantage, automatic bucket if someone's flying at him. Like either he's going to get a bucket or like with the defense in rotation, he's just going to kill you passing, which is why his passing has gone crazy lately as well. To your point about like the team wide passing, like a lot of that starts with attacking defenses in rotation more and having your best passer do that, which is Jalen. So that's cool. And then the last thing I'll say is, just I was hating on him earlier, so I got to give him his flowers. Landry Shamet has begun to put the ball in the hoop. Precious, even though he misses like 3 unforgivably easy layups per game. You look at the box score at the end of the game and he's still like 4 for 8 or whatever. I think he was 5 for 7 or 5 for 8 the game before. Deuce, I think the garbage time, which was it the Memphis game where he went crazy in garbage time?
Yeah, dunk in garbage time. Yeah, against Memphis.
Yeah, he had the dunk and he had like the 3. I think I think that garbage time was really important for him because he was just like, I'm shooting a mid-range shot. I'm shooting a step back. I'm dunking on people. I'm getting my swag back. And you saw it in the game versus Denver too, with some of the bench units. I was watching the national broadcast, and which I thought was pretty good. Jay Billis and Ryan. How do you say his last name? Ruocco. Ryan Rocco. Ruocco. Deuce took a pull-up 3 with like very early in the shot clock, and Billis was immediately like, "Oh, I don't like that shot," and then he immediately in the next possession took like another tough mid-range shot and made it. And Billis you could tell he had like the real Hooper appreciation in his voice. He was like, all right, Deuce. And then the third possession, he took another shot and it made it.
Yeah.
So like for him to take a heat check, miss it, and then take 2 other tough shots and make it, like he's getting a little bit of his confidence back. And with that comes confidence from Tibbs, because Tibbs don't play that shit if you're going to be a bench player and not be confident, especially a guard. We saw Deuce's rope shorten up a little bit in January. So the bench is finally contributing a teeny bit. So it's a lot of things coming together at once on defense and offense. I would say this team really doesn't resemble even the team from the beginning of the month, much less earlier in the season. So, it's one of those things where like we know that the team is going to evolve over the course of the year, especially with these players who haven't played together. But it's just cool to see a plan come together. So, you got to give some credit to Tibbs for really adjusting on both ends, and to the players for embracing those adjustments versus good teams. So it's not easy to do, right? It's one thing to face the Wizards and be like, oh, we're going to switch more. But this is the last thing I'll say. Ironically, I think the Knicks execute better versus good teams, because versus bad teams, they often come in and they're just like, man, who gives a shit? These guys are bums. Like, we can just out talent them. Which is a little bit of what happened at the beginning of the Kings game, but like in the Memphis game, like Cat was fucking flying around from the tip. Like these guys, they knew they had to like execute the game plan. Same with Denver. Like they didn't. They were a little sloppy in the second quarter versus Denver and the end of the first quarter, but like it wasn't for lack of effort. Like they were pretty engaged. So it's cool to see, and they're gonna need it because this stretch of tough opponents continues for a while, right? It's like basically through the All-Star game.
I never look at the schedule. I think looking at the schedule is stupid.
It's
They'll
like
play the Lakers tomorrow. They play the Lakers tomorrow, then the Rockets on Monday, the Raptors on Tuesday, so back to back. Celtics the Saturday. What the fuck is this schedule? That's so weird.
Yeah. The Celtics matinee, I think.
But it's a Celtics game on Saturday evening. But like they have a back to back Monday, Tuesday. They don't play from Tuesday until Saturday. And then the All-Star break is the following week. So they go Lakers at home, Rockets at home, go to Toronto, Celtics at home, go to the Pacers, and then the last game before the All-Star break is Hawks at home. Yeah, so it's not, I wouldn't say this is necessarily the most grueling stretch ever, but it's not a stretch you should take for granted. They need to capitalize on the opportunities they have. You play the Lakers without Anthony Davis on Saturday. That needs to be a win. Don't play with your food against the Raptors on Tuesday. They've actually been playing better, the Raptors. Although some of their schedule has been a bit favorable here too. But they are playing better. So again, don't take that for granted. And then, then you have Celtics and then Pacers, and then you close with the Hawks right before the All-Star break. Again, the Hawks, they don't have Jalen Johnson. You got to capitalize on these things. So we'll see, how that all plays out. Obviously, between now and then is also the NBA trade deadline, which is on February 6th. So that's next Thursday. Going back to what you mentioned, I don't have too much to build on, but I did want to bring this up because I think it's interesting. You talked about, kind of getting on transition more and turning teams over more. If you look by month, the Knicks they were at 6.1 steals per 100 possessions in October. Then they were at 7.5 in November. And then the last 2 months, they're 8.6 and then 8.7 so far in January. So this is all per 100 possessions. So they're definitely ticking upward. And just for a point of comparison, the Rockets are leading the league in steals per 100 possessions this month with 10.9. Oklahoma City is at 9.7. They're in third. So they're not at those peak levels, but it's definitely been a greater point of emphasis for them to get out. I think to play the passing lanes more, maybe be more aggressive in some of their help defense coverages. And I think, look, some of that may have resulted in some of those poor defensive showings that we had when the Knicks were kind of in a rut. The Pistons game comes to mind, but it seems like they look more cohesive. They look more consistently like they're on the same page. I think their communication is improving. You see them talking during plays, after plays when there is a miscommunication to just kind of make sure that they understand how they want to cover it the next time. Still a lot with Bridges and Cat. So I think that they're trending in the right direction defensively, and I think they can still get to a better place on that end of the floor. You talked about Deuce. The offense I've just never really been that concerned about. I'm like, he's just going to make shots at some point. But like, I think what was really good to see from him, especially in this, against Memphis was good too, but also I thought against Denver, he played a really, really strong defensive game. Thought he was super physical at the point of attack. I thought he was just active. And that's a good sign because I think it is showing that he's kind of feeling better, since that's probably the best he's looked to me physically since coming back from the hamstring. Obviously, dunk against Memphis kind of speaks to that as well, right? So seeing that from him is really good. He's even had more confidence. Like, again, you referenced it, kind of shooting off the dribble. And of course, that's good to see. But like, not just shooting off the dribble, but actually trying to take guys off the bounce. And unfortunately, that is just remains very much not a strength of his. But to see that, I think speaks to the confidence that he's having again in his kind of trust in his body and how he's feeling physically. So that's all good. I would like if Campaign would stop taking some of the most insane, unnecessary heat check threes. But I don't think that I'll ever succeed in seeing that wish come true.